Have you ever been in the awkward and embarrassing position where someone has reason to say to you, hey, look, it's not all about you? Ever been there? That actually might be a good subtitle for today's scriptures and my homily. It's not all about you. Or as St. John put it, in this is love, not that we have loved God, but that God has loved us. I don't know God through my own discovery. I only know God because God has chosen to reveal himself to me. God is not my idea. I am God's idea. God is not someone I choose to invite into my life or not. Rather, it's God who chooses to invite me into his life. I would guess that most of us believe that we decided to come to Mass this morning. But that would not be quite accurate. What happened is that you and I responded positively to God's invitation, to God's urging, God's nudging us to come to church today. Now, it may well be that some of us have made a habit of responding positively to God's weekly invitation to worship. But the origin of that habit is not some noble motive on my part or yours. The origin of that habit is the Spirit of God who constantly stirs within our hearts and minds, desiring to lead us, to draw us closer and closer to the Lord. That habit is what happens when we abide in God's love, and God's love abides in us. It becomes part of who we are. How about if each of us took a moment just now to recall the last good deed you did? The last time you reached out generously to somebody in need. The last time you forgave somebody who offended you. Do we suppose or even presume that such love springs naturally from within us? Each of us does indeed have the capacity and the potential for just this kind of love. But once again, the inclination, the feeling, the impulse, the desire to do the loving thing, to make the selfless choice, to give until we feel the pinch, all of this comes not from ourselves, but from God. And if that all seems too much to swallow, if your pride just can't take that this is all God's work and I'm really just responding to that, then consider this. The inclination, the feeling, the impulse, the desire we have is inspired by God. I think when we phrase it that way, it becomes a little easier to take. In fact, there's actually a logic to it. If the good we do, if the love we share were really of our own doing, why would we so easily and frequently choose the selfish over the generous, or the loving over the spiteful, or the resentment over forgiveness? It's not all about us. It's all about God, and God is love. His love, we find in the scriptures, is so much more than my feeling, my sentiment, my emotion. The love of which Jesus speaks is not a suggestion, it's a law. Jesus doesn't suggest that we love one another. He commands it. This is my commandment. Love one another as I love you. And if we're not exactly sure what he means by that, his next words make it very clear. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. There's a false and dangerous notion of love around today, which would have us believe that loving others means accepting them without qualification, without assessment of their ideas, their beliefs, and their behavior. Because if we actually lived that way, we would see what we do see. We would see more and more of commerce becoming our idol, of art being twisted into a caricature of itself, of law being redefined as a tool for self-indulgence, of faith being silenced, if not outlawed, of personal communication reduced to electronic messages, and society threatening to implode into a heap of human rubble. Just such as this might be our future if we continue to think it's all about us. It's not. It's not all about my family, my schedule, my convenience. It's not all about my pleasure, my fulfillment, my needs. It's not all about my politics, my ideas, my finances. It's not all about my nation, my town, my neighborhood. For those who follow Jesus, for Christians, it's all about the other. It's all about putting neighbor and neighbor's needs ahead of my own. Love inspired by God, love that comes from God, does not uncritically accept whatever comes down the pike. Christian love cannot accept, it cannot fail to critique injustice that is loaded on the backs of the poor, abuse that is inflicted on the innocent, war waged for politics and power, truth twisted beyond recognition, life reduced to personal choice and comfort, or hunger and homelessness tolerated by folks like us who generally have more than we need. Christian love makes serious demands on any who are bold enough to profess it. Christ commands us to love one another as he has loved us. If we're not clear about that, that's why we worship every week in the shadow of the cross of Jesus, lest we forget the kind and depth of love we celebrate and profess here. It's not all about us, but Jesus gave his life on the cross as if it were, that he might teach us to put others ahead of ourselves, even as he laid down his life for us. That very kind of heroic love is what Jesus will call you and me to live in the week ahead. Tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's this very kind of love that God's Spirit will incline us to, nudge us towards, urge us for, inspire us to live in the week ahead. May the word we have heard and the communion that we will soon share at this table remind us it's not all about us.